Hello and what's up class, and we are here for the part 3, module 1 lesson 3 of English for academic and professional purposes. Module 1 lesson 3. So our lesson for today is all about academic reading strategies. Here are the objectives, the what's in. So let's recall. We are all aware that there are formal language and informal language which are associated with particular choices of grammar and vocabulary. So contractions, relative clauses without a relative pronoun, and ellipses are more common in informal language. So like for example in these statements, she has decided to accept the job. She is decided to accept the job. So big difference between the two. If you will be asked which of the following is acceptable in an academic writing, so of course the number 2. So moving on to what I know. So you're going to answer this one in your activity notebook. So the instruction is this: pretend that you are a research consultant. You have been assigned the task of researching this assignment and then writing a report that includes a recommendation for Brillantes based on your findings. Okay, so you're going to read the paragraph below and answer the questions that follow. Write your answer in your notebook. So you're going to read this one and then answer the following questions in your activity notebook. So you have to put the answers in the notebook. So you don't need to copy the questions, just the answers in your activity notebook, writing the title of the activity, What I Know. Is that clear? Okay, so what's new? Moving on to the next. This is also another topic to consider. Consider this cooking analogy, noting the differences in process. So checking the differences between these two paragraphs, the paragraph A and the paragraph B. So which paragraph is clearer? Of course, it was already given. You just have to read, and the explanation was at the below part. So just read and analyze what's in the selection. So what is it? So do you know that we have different reading strategies? So strategies differs from each reader. So like myself, I have my strategy of reading a certain material, and you as the student also have a strategy on how you read a certain paragraph, a certain story, or a certain selection if you wish. So the same reader may use different strategies from different contexts because their purpose for reading changes. So yes, agree with this. You use different strategies for different contexts. Dili pasabot nga kung nagbasa ka og comical skits or strips, comic strips, pareha na gyapon imong strategy sa pagbasa pag abot sa magbasa ka og academic text. So you have different strategies applied when you going to read certain contexts. So ask yourself, why am I reading and what am I reading? So this is a crucial question that you need to consider before ka mag-answer certain questions. Nganong gabasa ka ug unsa na imong gibasa? Kailangan makabalo kag nganong gabasa ka, and you must also know ug unsa na imong gibasa. Kay basi nagbasa-basa ka, wala kay knowledge about sa imong gibasa. So you need to check the background first of what you are reading before ka mag-proceed to the questions, or before ka mag-proceed mag-read more sa imong gibasa. Like for example, if you are reading a novel, so for you to know what's inside the novel, you have to check the back part of the novel, which is the synopsis. Di mo may balaan kung unsa na nga selection all about imong gibasa. Moving on. What are the purposes of reading? You need to know the purpose why you are reading that certain text. So we all aware that we have different purposes why we are reading these selections, these books, these scholarly articles, these textbooks and reviews, these comments, suggestions. It's because for these different reasons. The first thing is to scan for specific information. Yes, that is very true. You are getting certain informations that you wish to know in that certain context. Diba? Nagbasa ka because gusto ka makabalo. That's it. To skim to get an overview of the text. Diba? Nagbasa ka, it's because you want to get the overview, the general idea of the selection, the general idea of the text. To relate new content to existing knowledge. Siyempre, na knowledge about a certain thing, so gusto nimo dugangan. So gusto nimo i-relate sa imong natun-an. Excuse me. Like for example, kabalo na ka maluto og tinolang manok. So nakatuon po ka unsa pagluto og tinulang isda. So imong gi-relate dayon sa imuang na previous knowledge nga kabalo magluto og tinulang manok. Kabalo na po ka magluto og tinulang isda, di ba? Makes sense. You have existing knowledge, then you incorporate the new knowledge learned. So to write something often depends on a prompt, di ba? You get ideas before you write. Di ba pagkag idea una, aya din ka magsulat. Because you cannot write something that you don't know. You cannot write something nga dili nimo hibalan. So kailangan sa nimo kuha overview nga knowledge, then una ka magsulat. You cannot write something like, for example, on our part, we cannot write about K-12 program kung dili mi magbasa about sa K-12 program. So, kailangan sa namo basahon, studyhan what is the K-12 program, ay mi magsulat about the K-12 program. So, next is to critique an argument. Oh, naagya po ni siya ng mga cases. Gabasa ka because you want to critique a certain argument nga pakita or gi-voice out sa certain nga person. So, di ba na ay naglalis na sila, nailalis nga naitabo. It's because they have their opinions, their ideas about a certain topic nga ga-contradict with each other. So, they created an argument. So, syempre, before you engage yourself in an argument, you need to be prepared through reading different selections. Dapat nakabalo kag unsa imong pambala alang certain argument para dili pug ka maulawan, di ba? So next is to learn something. Yes, like this one, we are reading the modules for us to learn something. Gabasa ta ni ining module para makatuon ta about ani nga subject. And then lastly, for general comprehension, general knowledge. Para lang na atay knowledge to consume, information to consume. Kaya di man pod siya maayo nga magpuyo ta diri sa kalibutan nga di tagatuon. So every day ga-involve gyud siya og learning. You consider that one every day is a new day for you to learn. So these are the important things that you need to consider na imo i-adjust ang imong reading strategies to your purpose of reading. So before reading, you have to consider this one. Establish your purpose for reading. Dapat kabalo kasi mo purpose nga nung nagbasa ka. Before ka magbasa, dapat makabalo kasi mo purpose nga nung nabasa ka. Speculate about the author's purpose for writing. Dapat makabalo ka unsay rason sa author nga nung iyan na siyang gisulat. Dapat makabalo ka unsay purpose ana iyang gisulat. Review what you have already know and want to learn about the topic. Kabalo ko some of you gabasa og mga selections nga somehow nanamoy background knowledge about that selection or the topic being discussed in the selection. So kailangan i-review sa nimo balik, i-review to nimo imong previous knowledge and want to learn about the topic. So nana kay previous knowledge and gusto nimo matun-an about the certain selection that you are reading. So mura ka background check kumbaga. Next is preview the text to get an overview of its structure, looking at headings, figures, tables, glossary, and etc. You are previewing the text, you are reading the text, scanning the text. It's because to get an overview of the structure, you're just getting the headings. Kung sa balita pa na headline, gikuha nimo, then figures, nagkuha ka kumpila, tables, mga graphs, and mga charts, then the glossaries, and etc. So before reading, i-check po na nimo if it is legit or reliable. Next is predict the contents of the text and pose questions about it. If the authors have provided discussion questions, read them and write them on a note-taking sheet. So before ka magbasa or before reading, you need to jot down notes sa mga questions. Then you're going to answer that one first before reading the certain selection. Like this one in the module, di ba na yung mga questions prior to the lesson. So you have to answer that question first to check if you have a background knowledge of the lesson being to be discussed rather. Di ba? So i-check sa nimo kung enough ba imong knowledge before ka mag-proceed to this topic. Because doon na yung mga topics nga dili ka basta-basta maka-proceed or it's very hard for you to proceed kung wala ka ng mga background knowledge or mga previous knowledge or mga previous lesson ng mga knowledge kumbaga. So kailangan naa kay background knowledge sa katong involve ana nga lesson. Next is note any discussion questions that have been provided. Sometimes at the end of the text na siya ginahatag. Pero if ever there is a chance nga ihatag siya before reading the topic, so answer those questions, discussion questions. But mostly sa end part na siya. So next part is during reading. If you're going to read, kamulo na kang basa, first thing that you need to do is annotate and mark sparingly sections of the text to easily recall important or interesting ideas. If that certain line or certain paragraph catches your interest, then highlight that one. Annotate or highlight that one. Usually gagamit og highlighter kung imo ang libro. Pero in that case of the module, dili man na imo module, so imong isulat sa imo ang notebook nga ay imong lecture notebook. Next is to check your predictions and find answers to post questions. So naman tayo mga questions gigiansiran prior reading the selection. So you're going to check that one. Kung ang imong predictions to that questions gigatag prior, mutugma ba sa imo ang nabasa. I-check nimo. Next is use headings and transition words to identify relationship in the text. Yes, you need to use headings, mga headings, and transition words. Di na ako ibalik og discuss kung saan ang transition words. It's up to you to research that one kay basic ta na siya. Next is create a vocabulary list of other unfamiliar words to define later. So if kamulo kang basa do na kay na encounter nga unfamiliar words, i-take note na siya, i-take note and search the definition later, or kung kaya contextual clues, define it through contextual clues. Pag dili, get a dictionary, lista, then yun, para makuha nimo yung idea. Magdepende na siya. I'm not saying that aya na nimo siya i-define later, pero when you are reading, maputol magud imong momentum kung i-define sa nimo siya, tiwas na pud nga basa. So ang style sa uban, basahon ti sa tibuok, gilista lang tong mga unfamiliar words, then ay kuhaon ng definition din, basa din sila otro. It's up to you which is comfortable on your part. Next is try to infer unfamiliar words meanings by identifying the relationship to the main idea. Context clues will do. Kung wala kay dictionary, kung wala kay dictionary, and you need to read the selection faster, so context clues will do. Next is connect the text to what you have already know about the topic. So kung na naka-background knowledge, i-relate. Try to relate the text that you are reading sa imong previous knowledge. If ever you have. Pero wala tayo mahimuan na. Take breaks. Split the text into segments if necessary. Ayaw split tagbasa. Chunk it down by segments para mas comfortable sa imong pagbasa. Maka-take ka og break para dili ma-pressure ang imong head. So, chunk it down as much as possible. After reading. Ay, imong button after reading is this one. Summarize the text in your own words. Note what you learned, impressions and reactions in an outline, concept map, or matrix. So, summarize the selection, the text that you have read. Depende in your own words. Do not copy from the selection. You write it down using your own words. Imong kaugalingong words ang gamiton. Dili ka magkopya kung simo nakuha from the selection. Next is talk to someone about the author's idea to check your comprehension. So kung nakay classmate, parehas mo nagbasa ana nga selection, pangutana sa imong classmate kung pareha ba mo pagsabot ana nga selection. Just to check if you are on the same track, then very good. That it means that parehas mo og idea. Pero if you are not on the same track, it means dili mo parehag idea. That's it. Basically, that's it. Di mo parehag idea. Next is identify and reread difficult parts of the text. Diba sa naka-encounter tag difficult words, difficult po na for you to understand, you're going to identify and reread that part again. Basahon nimo outro para mas masabtan nimo ang context behind that state. Lastly, define words on your vocabulary list and practice using them. Namo yung new vocabulary, going to practice that one in your everyday living. So, i-practice yun ninyo siya. You're going to practice. It's up to you kung saan ninyo siya pag-practice, pero kamo na ibala. But if I were you, kung na ngay mga friends na mahilig mag-speak og English, talk to them, converse to them every day para ma-exercise ang inyo ang English communication skills. It's very important to exercise that skill kay magamit na ninyo later on. Okay, so what's more? What's more is an activity. You're going to put that one in your activity notebook. So what's your purpose for reading? The direction is to complete this task. Match your purpose in reading with your activity. Suppose your purpose is in the first column. Fill in the activity that you will do to achieve your purpose. The first one is done for you. You write that one in your notebook. So, you're going to copy that table. Is that clear? You're going to copy the table given in your activity notebook. You're going to copy the table sa inyong activity notebook. Nagets ba? Kung nagets, proceed ta. So what have I learned? Okay, so remember this. Reflection. Today, you are able to, yes, kada siya, use the features of the text to help you read more effectively, adapt your reading activities to match your purpose, find out which conditions and strategies help you study best. So, as usual, you are required to write a reflection every end of the lesson. So, ako na siyang pangayuan sa inyong class na dapat doon na mo yung reflection sa inyong activity notebook at the end of every lesson. And by the way, before ta mag-proceed, part of your portfolio is to take a picture of yourselves nag-answer sa module o asa inyong place every time ga-answer mo module. Patabang lang mo sa inyong mga igsuon or use a tripod. Kung naamoy tripod, use a tripod para mapicturan inyong location every time ga-answer mo sa inyong modules. And kuha sa mo picture, kamulo mong answer sa inyong modules, the activities that you've done during answering these modules, because that would be a very big help when you're going to make your portfolio later on. So, is that clear, class? Okay, so what can I do? What can I do is an activity that you're going to answer in your activity notebook. So, directions. Read the excerpt of an article critic. Answer the questions that follow. Use the reading strategies you have learned from the previous discussion. Write your answer in your notebook. Okay, so you're going to read that one class. You're going to read the selection given and answer these questions in your activity notebook. Pwede na mo dili mag-copy sa question as long as inyong butangan like this one, what I can do, then the answers in every module. So butangan ninyo kung unsa na nga module ang inyong nansiran. Lesson 1, module 1, lesson 3. Module 1, lesson 4. Something like that. Next is post-assessment. So post-assessment is a multiple choice. You're going to answer that one in your activity notebook. The big notebook. The big notebook. Okay, so I guess we end here for our lesson 3. Is that great, class? Is that good? Nakasabot ba mo? Unta makatabang sa inyo ang video. Comment sa video for questions, clarifications, kuha ninyo na sabtan. And comment sad mo kung gusto niyo mag-live stream ta on the spot for the Q&A sa modules nga dili ninyo masabtan kaayo. And pwede po ta what do you call this? Pwede po ta mag-live stream Q&A about the modules nga inyong ginaansiran every Saturday. Bisag mga 1 hour lang, 1 hour will do, diba? Mag-live ko, mag-answer ko sa inyong questions sa modules. So 1 hour lang per subject, 1 hour for English for academic, 1 hour for the other subjects that I have. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Unta makatuon mo, class, unta na amoy nasabtan nining video. So see you on the next video for the lesson 4. Bye-bye.